As Chinese President Xi Jinping's visit to the UK continues, commercial ties are taking center stage. The trip is expected to result in as many as 150 deals worth as much as 46 billion US dollars or 30 billion pounds. The deal will cover an array of sectors, including energy, infrastructure, aircraft manufacturing, and healthcare. Let's take a closer look.
Who will be the UK's most valuable trading partner in 20 years? It's a question asked in a survey published in Britain's Telegraph newspaper. And most Britons voted China. At 29%, it topped both Europe and North America in the eyes of the public. And with President Xi's visit producing multi-billion-dollar deals, it's not hard to imagine. Of all the key business agreements, nuclear power is generating the most headlines. Chinese companies will help build 2 nuclear reactors at Hinkley Point in the southwest of England. Once up and running, it could supply as much as 7% of Britain's power supply. High-speed rail is also set to get $80 billion in investment, an ambitious plan to link up the city centres of London, Birmingham, Leeds and Manchester, cutting travel time in half. As for trade, British Chancellor of the Exchequer George Osborne wants to make China Britain's second largest trading partner by 2025. Right now, it's number 6. And on the financial side, many expect a big announcement on China issuing government debt in renminbi in London.
I think there are no limit to the areas. There's a great deal of collaboration and cooperation. Financial services world, for example, London being the main offshore location for renminbi trading.
London is a hub for RMB business, aiming at becoming the largest outside of China. A yuan-pound swap deal is already in place, and in London on Wednesday, China's central bank issued a renminbi note for the first time outside of China. Economic ties have been developing rapidly in recent years. Britain is already China's top destination for investment in Europe. Meanwhile, China is Britain's second largest non-EU trade partner in the world. In 2014, bilateral trade increased over 15% year-on-year to more than 80 billion US dollars. Tourism is also providing a boost to the UK economy, with huge numbers of Chinese holidaymakers breathing new life into the retail sector. Last year, 400,000 Chinese visited the UK, but complex visa rules have prevented this rising even higher.
Our leading finance minister has initiated a scheme to bring 50,000 additional visitors from China, not having to pay for a visa, so it's a free visa scheme.
China-UK ties lie on a firm foundation of economic success. It now remains to be seen how the two sides can build on it and realize their dream of a golden age.
For more on the trade and economic ties between China and the UK, we are joined here in our Beijing studio, Mr. Zhang Jianping from the Institute for International Economic Research at China's National Development and Reform Commission. Welcome, sir. Meanwhile, in London, we are joined by John Ross, Senior Fellow at the Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies at Renmin University of China, and now he is in London. And joining us also from University of Warwick is Kamal Melahi, Professor of Strategic Management at Warwick Business School. Gentlemen, welcome to the three of you. Business and economic ties, we've got a lot of stuff to talk about between China and UK. After all, that's the shining point of the bilateral relations. First of all, Mr. Zhang here in Beijing, 30 billion pounds of trade deals likely to be reached this time during Chinese President Xi Jinping's trip to the UK. Wow, it's a huge number, especially when you think about the numbers before. It was only 10 billion during last president's visit. Bigger number necessarily mean better economic and trade ties?
Of course. If you look at trade volume, you may find that 5 years ago between China and the UK, maybe only about 40 billion US dollars. But now we are going forward to close to 100 billion US dollars. If you look at investment, that is another very big numbers. Especially China's investment in the UK. You may find that in recent 3 years, every year, growth rate about 85%. You know that my institute last year released our China's investment in the guidelines for China's investment in the UK. Before we do that, our goal is that after we release these guidelines, the growth rate estimated about 30 to 40%. but actually more than 100%.
We hope your guideline really worked in that regard.
You may download it from the website.
Well, we don't want to do any more promotions for that specific guideline because there will be a lot of things to talk about. Professor Ross, let me go to you. Even though the number have been increasing, many are asking whether there are conflicts in terms of the nature of trade. I understand your country, even though steel is not a big industry, but it has been making a lot of rhetoric in your politics. And the Prime Minister was even promising to bring that up during certain talks with the Chinese president this time during the state visit. What do you think about the different voices from your business and economic circles? How much do people, you think, in your country understand the significance of this trade relations and economic ties and the nature of these relations?
Well, I think they understand it very accurately, actually. As the Daily Telegraph poll you reported, the largest group of people in Britain think China will become the most important economic relationship. The real advantage of China is really the economies are very complementary. Britain is very, very specialised in high-end service sector. It has some very, very good pharmaceuticals companies and so on and so forth. But it's really a service and particularly financial service-driven economy. It's not really in competition with China over a wide range of manufacturing, and that's to the advantage of both countries.
Not at all, in fact. Let me go to you, Professor Mallaghy. You've got the Northern Powerhouse. That's an idea being proposed by Mr. Osborne. How much is being implemented is one thing, but it certainly is a big idea. You also got London as the financial center of one of those important ones in the world. What do you think about the different possibility in terms of its nature in trade and economic cooperation with China?
I think I want to pick up on the point just made earlier that the two countries in terms of the economic structure are significantly different, and because of that there is a huge scope for cooperation and collaboration. And for the Northern Powerhouse, I think there is a huge opportunity for investment in infrastructure. It's a region that is start of investment, and China is bringing the finances to finance that. London I think is key in this economic ties between China and the UK, because in London you have the stock market where it has a huge experience in dealing with international finance issue, and with China trying to internationalize its currency, I think it's going to benefit greatly from that.
Very interesting. You've been talking about the very positive side of the China-UK trade and economic ties, but may I raise just one example? The argument is not necessarily every deal has been going as smoothly as we want it to be. And if we have some footage, we can also play that. When it comes to nuclear investment, for example, ladies and gentlemen, everyone is looking at Hinkley Point. It's the first UK nuclear power plant in a generation and will be 33.5% owned by China. But the plant has had a lot of trouble getting off the ground. Originally, the plant was promising to provide electricity to cook turkeys in 2017, but now it looks set to miss even its latest target by the year 2023. The plant got the formal go-ahead in July 2006, but since then it's been plagued by a number of delays due to financial trouble and security concerns. Hinkley Point is said to have 3.2 gigawatt capacity and could power 5 million homes and create 25,000 jobs. The plant is an example, as some say. UK's openness to the Chinese investment, even in the areas of critical infrastructure, is quite unthinkable. But it seems that example is not necessarily, at least for now, a very positive one. So, Professor Mallaghy, when you say you agree with the other two gentlemen that the potential is wonderful, what about some of the realities, such as this case study, we have to look at?
I think with all economic relationship and business deals, they are not all going to be smooth. But let's go back to the case of the Hinkley Point. I think there are debates and voices, different voices raising concern about security issues, and in both sides of the argument. On the one side, it's maybe the government has rushed the decision and should maybe wait to make sure that all the security issues have been addressed. But on the other side, the government has said that it has done the due diligence and it's happy with the current situations and things at stake. But in this case, China is not only contributing with finance to the case, with 30% of the project, but also in design and implementation of the project. So it's a project that has generated a lot of debate and a lot of headlines. But the project, I think there is complementarity because China has the experience in this case, and the French side is contributing to the project as well. So overall, I can see synergies and reasons for the project. But yes, I think there is a debate. There are a lot of voices concerning the security issues of this project.
Right. Of course, this project is only one of those many of the joint projects between China and the UK. In that regard, Mr. Ross, I want to have your opinion. You've been quite seasoned China analyst, traveling back and forth between the two countries. We see on the one hand, the UK government, particularly the current administration, very enthusiastic about doing business with China, increasing the ties with China, not just in business and economics, but also in the other areas. But on the other hand, you also got huge debates inside your civil society, and meanwhile, different views about what the future should be like with China between the two countries. Mr. Ross, the question is, will the administration be able to paint a picture that the public would be convinced and they would be brought on board so that projects with China could get an easier starter and also can be further implemented, so the Chinese side, the Chinese business community, can be confident about that and can be more interested in doing business with the UK? Mr. Ross.
Well, yes, I think public opinion is moving very strongly on it, and I can give a very personal example of this. When I was in charge of London's economic policy for the mayor in 2004, we announced that we were going to set up offices in Beijing and Shanghai, and this was ridiculed and attacked by the Conservative Party as a waste of public money. Well, we spent very much less money than Mr. Cameron is doing on President Xi's visit. And that type of criticism, which was made 10 years ago, will not be made anymore. As I said, I think that on Britain, that their view is that they know Britain is an international open economy, that's the public. They see China as the rising power, as shown in that opinion poll, and there are similar polls amongst business, and British people are very practical. They want to make money, so they're in favour of very good economic relations with China. I think there's a rather developed understanding, and this visit will, of course, increase it further.
Mr. Ross, first of all, I'm sure Mr. Cameron has already done his math in terms of how much to put into the ceremonies and how much the UK will earn out of the big deals with China. But by the way, let me come back to you, Mr. Zhang, for a question related to that. What exactly is the kind of attitude, is the kinds of receptions do you think the Chinese business community is expecting from the UK? Is it going to be a very attractive investment destination? Since you've already done that report, by the way, you just said earlier, is it going to be a very attractive investment destination for the Chinese capital? Because the Chinese capital is being needed around the world.
If you look at 5 years ago, if you look at China's, stock investment for FDI outflow in different regions in the world, at that time, China's investment in UK, in EU, as well as in the US, quite limited. The first destination, that is Asia countries. The second one is Latin American countries, and third one is African countries. But after financial crisis and debt crisis, you may find that China's investors accelerated their investment in both EU and the US. Especially in EU, you may find that in EU there are so a lot of high technologies. Right. Meanwhile, they have their very good assets. But after financial crisis, the asset value gradually, becomes.
So my
quite
question
rational.
is, in the UK, what kind of conditions do the Chinese community need
Yeah.
in order to do their investment?
Right. For Chinese investment now, the first one, they want to explore the potential market in EU. The second purpose, that is to seek, potential technology platform. I saw as a brand value added. I saw as management. On this regard, in UK, you may find that so a lot of assets they can provide this type of value added for China's investors.
One of the things people here are really interested in, Professor Malachy, is whether the policies now being practiced by the current administration inside the UK is going to be sustainable once your economy is getting better. Because people are saying economy wants to be great friends with China at a time of difficulty, but when these economies are recovering, things could be a little bit different. So, Professor Malachy, of course, those are practical attitudes, but on the other hand, how sustainable will the policies and the attitudes, the optimism that we see today will continue in the future?
I think with all kind of relationships and ties, they have ups and downs, and I'm sure that down the road, I think the two countries will face some difficulties in certain issues. But what we are seeing is the two countries laying the foundation for long-term relationship based on trust and cooperation between the two countries. So I see it as even now there is a huge potential for collaboration. We don't know what's going to happen in the future, but with the foundation being laid down now for long-term relationship, I can only see that it's going to increase, and during when the economies are doing very well, perhaps there'll be more potential for that. But are we going to see difficulties in the future? Absolutely. But with the kind of enthusiasm, commitment from both parties to deal with these issues, one expects the two countries to overcome problems down the road.
Very diplomatic, I think the answer is. Let me go to you, Mr. Ross. AIIB, Belt and Road Initiative, these two concepts, some suggest originally coming from China, and different countries have their different choices whether to join or not, and the UK wants to join. AIIB, of course, already playing a pioneering role in terms of European countries, and also Belt and Road Initiative. Your administration wanted to be linked to the Northern Powerhouse. Will that work? That's a big question mark. Or is it only a way to attract the Chinese investment, and that's it?
No, it's certainly they were very, very hard-headed. On your point just made previously, Mr. Cameron thinks that the ceremonies are very cheap indeed for the type of business that he's doing at the present time. And nobody's complaining about the expense. Now, the key thing is, while the UK economy is recovering, it's not generally realised that it's a very unbalanced recovery. It's engaging in huge amounts of foreign borrowing. It's got the largest current account deficit in the world, and it therefore needs partners who have deep pockets, and China has got currently the deepest pockets in the world. And what Britain sees as an opportunity to continue to develop its financial sector, while at the same time getting the finance for the big infrastructure investment which it needs, and which Mr. Osborne is not actually in a position to pay for, given particularly his own very stringent budget rules. I think mutual self-interest is the most firm of all relationships, and therefore, as there is a very real mutual self-interest, I expect the economic ties to continue to develop. They're not purely a short-term thing.
Neutral self-interest, if that theory really works, then what about China, Mr. Zhang? China has been having certain challenges. One is to promote the Belt and Road Initiative, let others to join, because others try to understand. This is still a process to understand exactly what the concept is. And secondly, China has been having some challenges in promoting its own projects. For example, the high-speed rail and nuclear program. These are just some of those. Do you think the UK can be a beacon, as they say, in terms of providing a case study, an example of other Western countries to look at how the Chinese technologies and projects might work in a Western country, and therefore have more confidence about Chinese investment and also Chinese projects such as the high-speed rail? But will the speed catch up with the need?
Yeah. Firstly, I'd like to say the Belt and Road Initiative this is a new type of regional international cooperation platform on which you will find that any economy, in case that they are interested to join, they could be involved in, even if the UK is far away from China. But also I do believe that UK also will be the very positive constructor on the platform, on the new platform. Especially that firstly UK supported AIIB, and then AIIB, the main focus will be on the platform of BRI. So in that regard, I think that
BRI means Belt and Road
Belt and
Initiative.
Initiative.
Yeah, a lot of abbreviations here.
On this platform, UK and China, they can work together. They can promote projects, in north part of UK, but also they can promote their international cooperation project in other economies on this platform.
I see.
But regarding those infrastructure projects, railway and power station, many projects, I think that now China has already accumulated experiences, and they will consider different situation and different demand in different economies.
Right.
We can work together to promote this type of projects.
Professor Ross, whoever has been taken China's fast-speed rail would say, well, this is amazing. We should have one of those as well. But not many of those British people could come to China, during 1 or 2 years. And therefore, will these projects really likely to have its roots inside your country? Many Chinese are asking that question, Professor Ross.
Well, as I travel very frequently on China's high-speed trains, I'm sure they'll be absolutely delighted to travel on them. The key question in Britain, the obstacles aren't really either the money or the technology, because the Chinese high-speed rail technology, incidentally also its tunnelling technology for railway construction, is very advanced. The hold-up is really the British planning system, because whereas China can get rather rapid permission for things to go ahead, there are many hurdles that have to be gone through, and people are amazed to think that it may take 15 to 20 years to build a single high-speed rail line in Britain. Well, it's not due to a technological problem, it's due to a planning problem. But the Chinese technology is totally adequate. Even without any improvement at the present time, it would be excellent for people to travel on.
Well, I hope you got more chance to speak in your country about that. Well, at least the Chinese investors are thinking about that. Would be a very positive thing. But for now, I have to say thank you for the three of you gentlemen for sharing your thoughts and your insights about trade and economic ties between China and the UK. In fact, after this beautiful visit, there will be a lot of practical work that needs to be done. Thank you so much. Zhang Jianping here with us in Beijing, in London, John Ross, and also in the University of Warwick, Kamil Malahi. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us.